So, essentially, what we have here is a stalemate. And so the war just has been grinding on for a while now. Several years have gone by, and thousands of people die daily on the Russian side, not to mention the Ukrainian front lines. So we have a major discrepancy between them. But this can be resolved in the fact that the war is being funded and ongoing by the West and other key players, obviously Putin. But this means that the war is continuing to draw more fuel out of this funding from a bottomless stack of cash, essentially. And this has gone on for many years. This would never have happened if initially Ukraine had just gotten what it needed to win the war, but this is the current state of the war as it drags on to a stalemate. Now currently it's become a state of ongoing attrition, with many of Ukrainian cities being leveled completely, and the Russian cities currently are being bombed by Ukraine as well. My opinions on this are pretty simple. It's an act of foreign policy at this point from the United States perspective, and also I would say that a lot of the big military industrial contractors and the defense research firms are all testing and developing new technologies such as autonomous fighters and drones that are seeing their use or application being tested in Ukraine as we speak. And this has gone on for a while, as well as the military-industrial complex is using the battlefields in Ukraine as a stage to test the lethal effectiveness of their weapons and to great degree in the benefit of the Ukrainians. Although this is not necessarily a benefit to the Ukrainian people, who are being used as pawns in a way, and to a degree are fighting a war, a poor man's war, and it's the same on the Russian side. The Russian soldiers are of a greater degree majority minorities of the Russian Federation, which have been selected to fight the wars essentially in the same way that the Russians didn't hold drafts and actually round people up that lived in Moscow, but from all the outlying areas, they were the ones who were conscripted into the Russian armed forces, into this meat grinder in Ukraine. And so this has gone on. This has been clearly evident that the Muscovites in Moscow didn't want to be drafted, and so there's the social class there. Really, it's the same or more so than as what happened in Vietnam, I guess you could say, because of the social hierarchies never getting drafted. But it's a poor man's war, so the minorities in Russia are the ones that are conscripted to fight this war and to be sent into the meat grinder, to be tested on and killed utilizing new and more effective weapons by the day. I think it's been compared, the modern drone innovations and combat drone technologies have increased at the same rate of innovation as the U.S. saw in a lot of ways during World War II, and the state of innovation, or the rate of innovation rather, that we saw with our entire military-industrial complex at full force, at full swing during the war. And so we obviously know a lot of modern-day military equipment and machines were first developed and saw their light in the Second World War due to all this funding in the war and the war effort. But obviously things have been more derived nowadays. The Russians are still using a lot of older kit, but for instance, they still have the same or similar air defense missiles that were developed in the V2, so we have a lot of the same stuff, but new stuff is being introduced onto the battlefields in Ukraine in the form of drone-on-drone combat. Now you see multiple drones fighting it out in the skies because they've become such a commonplace staple of this war. It's a somewhat cheaper, I guess it does have an element of economics it's somewhat cheaper to produce drones, obviously, than actual full-fledged fighter jets, and also it saves lives in the fact that you don't have to worry about the fighter pilot's safety so much, especially when they're autonomous. There's no one even piloting it, so there's no risk. But with that said, there is still some risk, and I just think it's a little unsettling now with the increase in development of AI, but we have the press for also more lethal killing machines to be developed for Ukraine as well, obviously, and they've developed a lot of naval drones that have surpassed what we've conceptualized in the past, and I think they have a submarine now. It looks like some kind of a spaceship, but it's supposed to be an autonomous submarine that really is pretty simple. It's just a bomb that goes up under a Russian ship and destroys it like so, and actually it's been very effective what they've done with their autonomous or drone. Well, they used to be remote guided, but they had some latency issues, so I think many of the remote controlled drones now are using autonomous systems, but I could be wrong on that if it's all based on the algorithm. I mean, it is out at sea that they use them, so either way, these have been very effective in the kamikaze strikes against Russian ships, not really risking Ukrainian lives, and in many cases reaping the reward of an entire warship in many instances. And at this point, these drones have done a large number on the Russian Black Sea Fleet. I think most of it to this date's been destroyed by Ukraine, an army without an active navy. Well, anyways, this is just my opinion on the current state of the war. It is dragging on into attrition, and it's become it's been a meat grinder for a long time, but it just continues. It's sad to see that the losses incurred at the start of the invasion have only continued over the years at a staggering rate, and truly at a large scale, and not many countries are seeking peace.
Thank you all for watching. Patreon link will be in the description.